All right. I am so happy about how full this room is right now, and all you guys here. And I know most of you from different pieces of the world. Just met a new friend that we both work at the YMCA. Her full time, and me not so much, but we're all connected in these weird kinds of ways. So anyway, thank you so much for being here tonight. So we'll go ahead and get started, talk about some housekeeping for the reading series in general and St. Louis Poetry Center. I'm gonna double check right now. This is the 22nd season of Observable Reading series. It has evolved and changed over time, and so it's very cool to have something like this that just has lasting power, but also adapts. Has been at multiple locations all over St. Louis, and now we live here in the Kransberg High-Low. So tonight we have two great local poets, writers, thinkers. We have Mary Jo Bang and Eileen Giselle here, and yes. So I'm so excited to see as they read their work and see how their different styles and approaches start to kind of speak to each other and interact through this reading. Both of these writers are experiment with media, genre, languages. We have their books back here from Left Bank. So pick them up, and we'll also have Q&A after the readings. And then after that, time for book signing and things like that. I want to go ahead and thank Erin, our Executive Director of the St. Louis Poetry Center. Been manning this ship for a long time, and there's so many programs that have blossomed and grown under her. Grown? Okay, got it. Sorry guys. Under her leadership. So also want to thank our funders, the Missouri Arts Council, Regional Arts Council, and all of our St. Louis Poetry Center members. Without you, we could not do this work. It's so important, especially in a world where it's hard to sometimes in certain situations compensate writers and compensate curators and the people that make this stuff work, and we try really hard to make sure that everybody's labor is honored and valued. Also want to say thank you to our partners. We've got the High-Low, this beautiful space, thanks to the Kransberg Arts Foundation. We've got our beautiful booksellers at Left Pink Books. Yeah, is there anything I'm missing? You would let me know, wouldn't you? Okay. I'm Lizzie Peterson. I don't think I said that earlier. Bailey and I have been curating the reading for the last, I think we said this is going on to our second full season together. Lots of learning, lots of growing pains, but we're trying really hard to make this feel warm and a community event and authentic to all the different kinds of communities in St. Louis that love poetry and writing. So I'm gonna go ahead, do a quick little intro of Eileen so we can get this party going. All right. St. Louis native. Eileen is a poet, cultural critic, working person about town, has a full-length volume of poetry, Life After Rugby, published in 2018, second book, Francofilaments, which I believe you'll be reading mostly from. Yes, awesome. Which came out October 2024. And then I also wanted to, the new book that we were thankfully nicely talking about last night at dinner, this book of nonfiction called Lipstick that's part of Bloomsbury Academics Object Lessons series. And that will be coming out, I think the date changed, right? Late 2026? Early 2026, all the better. Which collects different essays and things like that around lipsticks. So you can see Giselle's poetry in Poetry Magazine, Diagram, all over the place, as well as more recently in 2023, she received a Rabkin Foundation Award for Visual Arts Journalism. And now she teaches writing and media studies at Washington University in St. Louis. I could say a billion, majillion things about how much I love the poems and I love the work and I loved how you play this very interesting role in the community, and I see you in all different kinds of spaces all the time, which is that kind of, right? St. Louis can be siloed, we all know this, but it's really nice when all these genres or all these kinds of communities intersect. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Eileen Giselle to read poems. Thank you, Lizzie. Thanks for everyone who's here. I'm gonna tighten this a little bit. Here we go. Well, maybe not. It's good. Or like I thought it would. Okay. It's propped up. Okay. Maybe not. That's not supposed to say. That's okay.
You sound guy, you have sound guy shirt on, I think you'll be better.
Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, I'm gonna start with a poem called Close. Two boys sprint through a pink field, elbows and knees spearing the air. Two boys through a field of knees, the air pinking their elbows. Two boys field the pink air, sprinting past elbowed knees. Two boys spear the pink, fielding knees, air, and elbows. Two boys knee the field air, sprinting through the pink. Two boys elbow the air, sprint through spears. Two boys air the elbow room. Two boys pink the air. So that poem was inspired by a film by the Belgian director Lucas Don't called Close. And each line takes the same diction and then rearranges it and makes it shorter and shorter. So each line gets a little bit shorter. And what I was trying to do with that one is in some way mirror through language what can happen on film when you have a camera cut and you have a scene get shorter and shorter. And so for me, writing and watching film and thinking about film and writing about film, writing poetry, I should say, they're all mingled with each other. And this book is maybe the one where that's the most conspicuous, that connection, because most of this book is based on film that I wrote about or actors or filmmakers that I interviewed between around 2016 and 2023, 2023, when I had the opportunity to interview a lot of filmmakers and actors that I admired. So I'm going to take you through some of this book and I'm going to read some newer work. Thank you so much for being here. Flanus. On all sides, all city long, the devil trees escort me. Neil says I am often, and sometimes I agree. The escalator, sparkling path to wherever joy is rational, will start too high to hear the dead, the summer birds and breeze. Faith is just fear of being alone, flowers notwithstanding. I won't cry over crinoline, but I want my money back. Juliette Binoche. Doe-eyed stilettos, willowy swagger, ebullience with a beveled edge of democracy, Brazilian duck, got dumped right after, marvelous things I thought I might regret, did nothing, did what one does when one does naughtily, unknots a throat during clouds in March, on a morning a man lies sweetly, unquietly, a man who is bad at lying, down the avenues I sauntered, the promenades I tread,
bragging about how close I was to ghosting all the Frenchmen and Frenching all the ghosts, to learning every line up, ladies, this could be your last chance, your fresh twist of fate, that soaring boulevard of dreams too old to follow, of life too calm to dread, a sparkling path that curls around croissants and crepuscules, a quick adieu to reason and hair too thick to comb, the lost pages dog-eared with unbearable precision, her mouth a long, cool j'adore, and her heart singing darkly. La Veille de Noël. He spent $100 on boulevardiers, then loaned me a pair of army shorts. I bled between dreams of unwashed nights to the bells of children's hymns. No appetite for anything but our floating heartbeats, Ginny and I quit teaching to be midnight bandits, tag boys from the snow to scarlet their shirts. Too much tongue, the coroner said. The time had come to eat all the chips. I borrowed a white bikini to plunge into St. Lawrence. Steam trailed us up the stairs. Strangers clapped in fluffy robes. Prefix lundi. Listen, I just couldn't text you back. I was rifling through a bin of panties in Paris. Voila, a diligent brunette said. C'est bon, declared a blonde. I stashed a blue-green number in a metal basket. I bought silly man undies, of which I'm sure you would approve. I don't mind the cigarettes if the ceiling feels heavenly. I fully intend at 80 to smoke after any and every glass of wine. It occurs to me now that you are that glass, that pretzels taste better than they ought to. When the sun comes out, two women in hats approach with fruit in a wooden bowl. Starved lips in the gloam, you select 2 cherries. Prefix Marty. Starved lips in the gloam, you select 2 cherries. When the sun comes out, 2 women approach with fruit in a wooden bowl. It's free, and they beseech you to eat it. It occurs to me now that these pretzels taste better than they ought. I fully intend at 80 to smoke after any and every glass of wine. I don't mind the cigarettes if the ceiling feels heavenly. I buy silly man undies, of which I'm sure you would approve, stash a blue-green number in an awkward metal basket. Voila, a diligent brunette says. C'est bon, declares a blonde. Listen, I just couldn't text you back. So I read those 2 together in part because I remember many, many years ago, Mary Jo in a workshop showing that sometimes you could reverse the order of a poem and that something can happen that's very magical when you play around with sequence. And so with that one, which is a prose poem, I played around with sequence thinking about the different effects just by reversing it. Morning sex. I didn't hear you say Charles de Gaulle and thought you meant the mayor. It's true I held your hand like a man. Your fridge, clean as alien spacecraft, makes me want to mess your mattress. I love that you love the name Lena Bembe. I hate the movie she starred in. Lie back now as I feign alarm at the things you think about saying. Virginie Efira. Seek out pleasure until pleasure itself becomes sad and slips through cracks in the street unpaved. For years I was redundant to myself. Orange number robbed of approximate waist, a natural penchant for perfect posture, flowers dumped that could be dried. By the fire, she was running out of options to pretend to be young, enough to redirect traffic, pedaling north in platform heels, mane flying behind her like a flag you could salute. Amélie Poulain. The key to the city is the city. Instamatic eyelash, a skeleton, cure for the human inside, a photo booth no longer here, a flock of rouge lollies winging a roughened clown, blind the baby, watching a dog, watching the chickens, already dead, a surge of love, of sugar plum ice cream, melon slices, a slender widow who smiles the first and very last time, a crowd of cobblestones past, the fountained absent coins and fragile dreams. The great romance is never about money or candy or bonneted children, but the wordless letter tucked under your door. So I wrote about Barbara Chase Rabu's show at the Pulitzer, which I found was absolutely spectacular. After I wrote about it, I took some of the language from the art review and repurposed it. So some of the writing from my film criticism shows up again, but in a different context. It has a different form when it appears in verse. Barbara Chase Rabu. Burnished arc of a woman's hips, warmth of a hand braiding cord into rope, lightness brushes depth to coax new mythos out of matter. The brooch on the breast, shedding lashes, monoliths, our oldest alloy, crimson dripping from part of the body no one warned us about, suspended before an earnest crowd, caught in the song of stringless harps, a bundle of something silver and fabulous, silk on the wrist of the rest of the world, a time before Paris, Rome, Philadelphia, before Malcolm, Mao, and Marian Anderson, after Cleopatra sat ramrod on the throne, read Gertrude Stein for the very last time, closed her eyes and opened her hands to a future void of famine. Vicky Creeps. What is a motif? A woman in mourning for her own body, of work impresses the queen, a single mother of no invention beyond the invention of the mother, something we can all be proud of, ourselves, grit in the face of reason, delight a bike of rusted doubt, neon lights, an empty stage, a dog dragging a yellow leash en route to a mother of ankles, tight adventures in leather, books line the lobby, the color of seafloor, naked theory of womanly everything you thought you knew, escapism, however tenuous, proves the only recourse to agency. Celine Sciamma. Celine Sciamma is known best for Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is a really beautiful film, but my favorite film of hers is actually Petite Maman, which is about two girls, and it was the inspiration for this one. You gave me breathing lessons I thought I didn't need, a space and time to velvet forests, liquid crystal displays of taste where time is a level of depth to image, rumble like we could all float away from the hum of home, the rhythm of teeth punctiliously brushed, the scratch of pencil on old loose leaf, two whose sister ponytail bramble, oak tree forts of billowing girls. You didn't invent my sadness, you stained its satin in just the right way. So one of the things that I did as a film critic is revisit the films of Claire Denis. I really love Claire Denis, but I think some of her films are also troublesome in how they engage race in certain cases, and some of the historical allusions that I also noticed when I did a little bit more research. So this poem was thinking about what I love about her, but also what I think should be addressed. And I think this is something that, as a critic, I often think about how, when you have very few women directors, it can be really easy to feel like they're inculpable, or that, everything they did was amazing. And it is amazing in some cases that the films were made, but I also feel like it's important to reconsider some of them, and to think about our heroes as human beings who can make mistakes. Claire Denis. Sex with a revolutionary does not make one revolutionary. Power is never just power, she says. I don't want to be a nurse or doctor, just an observer. Flat coats and slow fans and hair splayed formidable. A penchant for developing countries does not make one an expert. Eros via erasure, the bedding and shedding of white material via Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Cameroon, Djibouti, interchangeable as neutral shapewear, cool as patrician shaped table manners, filial cheeks and freckled duty, a hatless riposte on a speeding bike hauling baskets of coffee berries, a cultivated ignorance, or is it guilt? Cold as the petri dish, she straddles, stuns, and smirks at the world. So one of the things I discovered when I was doing a little bit of research for this book was this really amazing series of photographs of Tina Turner in Paris in 1990. And at the time, I think she was 50 years old. Peter Lindbergh is the photographer who was responsible for the series. And she had decided to move to Europe, I think in part because her career as a solo artist was taking off in Europe more than it was in the United States, which I didn't realize. The series of photos is really amazing, and I encourage you to look them up. And this is the poem I wrote in response, Tina Turner in Paris. No need to touch in of bicep flexed for the sky, overcast and underslept, mused to her own indefatigable self, hemmed in tight cotton, brow to the sun, she swapped her passport for another country that loved her better, not because it understood her, but because it didn't try to exhaust the ways a woman can be touched in order to touch. Her country, of course, has all but forgot. Charlotte Gainsbourg. White flag at half-mast, wiry brain in mother's boots. You lost your cat in Brooklyn, and my friend read the flyer. Lemon dream, tight bride, sinew on a wooded night. How long can the looming cirrus clouds, bitter sky without us? We who walk on the shoulder and shoulder the road, till full and absent-minded, we who fill the margins with ridiculous precision, who know exactly who we are and still give over in. So this poem is called Fire at the Doll Factory, and it feels like it's in dialogue with some of Mary Jo's beautiful poems. It's inspired by a scene from this movie called The Beast by the French director Bonello. I didn't actually care for the film that much, but the scene is incredible and is worth seeing. Sit through the whole film. This scene is incredible. I didn't know anything about the flood of 1910 in Paris either until I saw the film. Fire at the Doll Factory. Celluloid's cheaper than porcelain, said a fragile man in a sturdy suit. The water wrapped his shaking knees. I knew I'd never seen before. The flood of 1910. Paris swaddled itself in silk. Tremulous gleams from bobbing eyes. A blinking line in a stream of clarity. One ought not swim with painted brows, said he who lifted me over the void that once had been our moonlit street. Women watched in crimson gloves, my hips milk beneath my skirts. It is too late to begin living if one has already started to die. And this is a poem I wrote about my dog, who is no longer with us, but who was around for 14 wonderful years. Parc La Haye, which is a park in Montreal. When you wish to forget but cannot, your dog runs with you in the rain. You have nowhere to go but a woman's flat you have rented in a city. The woman, a dear and beautiful friend, is not just a woman, but you are just a woman tonight, a woman rushing home in the rain. I should have you ordered both a car, a man and could-be father texts, instead of watching you leave in the rain. You've run in worse places and in worse shoes, but now you're running off with your dog, running quietly in the rain. He is old but keeps up. You two have always been good at running. Your dog is tall, smart, good, and fast, his legs warm with summer rain. Claire de Lune. I've been alive a long time, a tongued lime in August, a soft rhyme floating down the 10th arrondissement. I'm a Fontainebleau moth, white as death, a sunlit lawn of untouched grass, the dark horse by a split tree who never returns your focus, or if he does, turns at once to the sound of bells a forest away, from a town he will never visit, knowing full well that neither will you. Isabelle Huppert. Vengeance is as dignified an option as any, less lightning than thunder, less timbre than quake. Collared encore, blank applause, trains stalled for towns at a time. What good can come of bad handsoms? What God would hum through a hurricane? Après la DNC. When I braved the wind for unnamed fruit, the sea and trees were shallow depths. The answer clung to my inner thighs as I turned to building an empire. I was sad to be done and glad to be scraped, and my books remained unopened. The first was on the art of recklessness, the next on neorealism, or rather, after neorealism. I admit to know no difference. Do you see how they lie so still, so new, as cicadas die downstairs of lust? As I wait here for you, bitter and perfect, as I tell you to stay and do what you want. So I'm going to read a couple poems from a new collection. It's not a collection coming out, it's just a collection I'm working on. The first is, hopefully someday it will come out, but right now it's certainly not. Topless modeling on New Year's Eve. Never underestimate the cage of your body, the stage of skin in which glitter abrades, this bright and humble, ravenous hour that feathers seconds, firsts with praise. There's famine enough for both of us, if anybody's counting. Freedom, Fritos, a psalm for silk. Never underestimate the age of exhaustion, the flight of stairs en route to the end. Off with their heads, a Red Queen says, to yet another diamond. Do you love what you've become? Have you found someone who can? And this is a new poem I wrote about the same dog. I started it a long time ago, and I've been returning to it every once in a while. It's called Holden in Echo Park, which is where he spent his last winter alive, was in Los Angeles. Holden in Echo Park. Who here hears our good goodbye, byline for forever? Frayed mesh vest, valor red, your chest, Sharon said, small and narrow as the balsa keel of a model boat. Your paws like those of a lost hare a maiden finds in the forest. Fuchsia keychain, kindergarten charm, lucky bob in a battered bag. The cancer deep in the dark of you, concealed by your ever gallant gait. None of us know how close or long the earth will agree to hold us, to drop mon fils, from my Sunday eyes to the grass you love to roll on. Nothing sounds awake anymore, not even the hills too kept to climb. As nothing lulls this last refrain, our steep love, slow joy, and hearts that howl at daybreak. And the last poem I will read is called The Lost Alophadites. My love loves hooded mergansers, absurd dives into wry arcana. He sees farther than I can fake, and fakes nothing within my gaze. Vagrants in the wetland, we forest for the modern. We ebb and flow the winter, forbid the easy estuaries. So what if a day in the life of the mind evolves in brackish waters? A joke about an overrated film, a scoop of lime moqueca, the sloppy second before God opts to starve the shore of starlight. Take it, take me, this empty beach, endangered sun, the hungry gulls, all ours. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here. It is beautiful to see this room full. I really do love it. It makes me happy, makes poetry happy. I love doing this thing with Lizzie and with the Poetry Center, and I just have a lot of gratitude. Eileen, thank you so much. Your poems are beautiful, and your imagery is amazing, and there's fun in there too. And I think it's really easy to forget that poetry can be so fun, and that's a deeply, can you hear me? That's a deeply important part of it and of everything. And I have the honor of introducing Mary Jo Bang. Mary Jo Bang has published 9 collections of poetry, including Elegy, winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award, and very excitingly for me, translations of Dante's Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, which, you know, Dante was one of my very first introductions into lyric, and it's just so amazing to see the work that you've done with it. And she teaches at Washington University in St. Louis, and you know, Mary Jo is a guiding light of American poetry, and also it's always so important for me as a teacher, you know, not just in practice and in action, but in lyric and the work that she has been putting out for all this time. And I'm just really, really grateful that you're here and excited to hear you. So thank you so much. Help me welcome her.
Hi everyone. What's happening? You're swapping it. Did she mess that one up?
Yeah.
She broke it, right?
She sure did.
Okay. Bad girl. So I'm going to read primarily from a film in which I play everyone, and I thought I would tell you where I got that title. It's from David Bowie. In 1997, he was involved in a online live chat. They had those things then. And a fan asked him, any movie roles in the near future? At which Bowie said, I'm looking for backing for an unauthorized autobiography that I'm writing. Hopefully this will sell such huge numbers that I will be able to sue myself for an extraordinary amount of money and finance the film version in which I will play everybody. So I found that amusing, but also I thought, isn't that the perfect description of a lyric poem? Because you're there and nobody else is there, and yet on the page there's perhaps the mother, the father, the beloved, and so you're playing everyone. And so a film in which I play everyone. Green earth, the crush beneath your feet, green grass, the you are here locator. Your eyes close, you shake your head and think, the sea was once everything we needed. Bowie singing, do you like girls or boys? Bowie saying, I'll finance the film version in which I'll play everybody. The siren gets twinned in the violence of a scene that refuses to end. This is, the world is a statement. So is, a day will meet the splintered ends of what went before it. The inhumanity, the rottenness. Night rolls in to stand watch, to see if we find our way. This on a rock moving through air, a century ticking away. I just want to thank Erin, I want to thank Bailey and Lizzie for inviting me, and for all of you. I'm very grateful. And everybody involved in the St. Louis Poetry Society. The next title comes from a poem by the British poet Gerard Manley Hopkins. The poem is spelled from Sybil's Leaves, and this phrase is in the poem. It's called Our Evening is Over Us. It's the trading in of the workday categories. Hours, clouds that linger inside plate glass corner windows, a man's head blocking the view, to become instead a faint future caption at the bottom of a photo of hibiscus. There is no getting around the fact that each of us is a world of our own, an entity, a pageant of one. Just like you, I feel my way forward, letting the back of my hand brush against the matte wall as I watch the chiaroscuro movie of my mind. There should be no anxiety in knowing the world will die when we die. This is how it is with us. The real is wherever we are. The days refuse to stay put. Speaking is a way of living with the ruin we were given. I thought I'd read this poem because it is set in St. Louis. It's called Hotel Incognito. There is such a hotel, yeah. Hotel Incognito. I was here once before, but not looking like I do now. Someone filmed me on the balcony. A man held my hand while dancing. You can see I was wearing a backless black dress. On the way out, I ran into a mean girl I'd known years before. She was basically the same, equally awful but older. She told me she'd married a judge. How apt, I thought. How simply beyond repair. The pavement outside the plate glass sparkled in lamplight, mica embedded in a mattress of slate. I was walking away. The ghostly X at the center of the turning door kept pushing me out. I was going through the motions of deciding I didn't belong. Not then, not there, not anywhere. One feels that way sometimes, right? With the mean girls. Some identical twin sister, one step ahead. The day shimmers with silver bouncing off the surface of a pond-sized July. Some identical twin sister, one step ahead, looking back without stopping. Can time keep capturing an animal even after it's turned itself in? Cell block of an instant, mugshot of an afternoon fawn, a disappearance at the border of a forest, a bed of narrow gauge needles, a sparkling pool at the park's edge, a botanical garden defined by the never-ending echo of a deco clock, the ornamental myth of floral love carried over moment by moment, repeating ad infinitum. You point to something, the doll in the side yard, her plastic teeth perfect in moonlight. You open your mouth to let the hush in. You and she dressed alike, invisible, luminous blue. When asked, you'll make manifest your ideal smile, your adaptable funhouse face. Punishment will find you when a fever fractures into pieces the durable rod of your long-standing spine. A coat slips from your shoulders. In its pocket, the magical half-tab you're waiting to take. Rimbaud to Paul Demonet, in ink, in a folded letter. You have to be a seer to see. What you really want is to be a camera, documenting the height you're about to fall from. This is the title poem, a film in which I play everyone. In scene 2, silence is a sleeve. I'm an arm in it. In an outdated Hollywood magazine, I found a photo of someone wearing my hair. How can that be? Now I can't stop thinking about the synaptic sparks over which no one has any control. Or they have some control, but not enough to count on in a crisis. I'm making sense all the time of all the senseless endings. A day is as long as the time it takes for the mind to consider life and death countless times, which must make a day plus a night a highway we're only vaguely aware of since we're busy, sitting in a chair or lying on a bed with a floral print bedspread, or walking to the store past someone with a dog on a leash and a phone in their hand, into which they seem to be saying, "That is not what I meant, blah, blah, blah," to an absent ear. Home, you unpack the items you bought, crease the bags flat, stack them out of sight, all without saying a word. This is a non-speaking part. You're an extra. That day you were filmed on the steps, walking Many of these poems were written during the pandemic. So if they seem very self-obsessed and ruminative, maybe you too were feeling that way. What I'm covering over is the seething beginning where I saw things but didn't know what they meant. The touching world kept putting its hands on me. There is no way to replicate what made no sense when it happened. What anything might mean after the fact is simply conjecture. That said, I am still alive inside it, and so see it, acting like a glass tumbler code, where the usual method is one number turns while the others wait, then the next, the next, the next, not in the same row, but all eventually, and rarely, but sometimes all turning at once. Sitting here now, the chasm below is the dizzying Grand Canyon all over again, and sadly, all over the world. The expansive now, with its glowing circle, moves into place like a globe one can't actually know, because it's always changing. Whole countries come and go. A secret retreats into its shell. I only know what I knew, and that was firsthand. Its little to nothing keeps me here and makes me think I would know what hell was if there were one outside of this one. Meanwhile, here comes a monster. I'm going to read some new poems. I'm working on a manuscript of poems that actually began because during the height of the pandemic, the St. Louis Art Museum closed, you might remember that, and if you have a brain. And because those were the key moments, right? The art museum closed. And so what they started doing was sending a picture of something in the permanent exhibit with a little description under it. And one day I was working on translating Paradiso, and at the end, Dante becomes kind of obsessed with the Virgin Mary. And it made me curious about the Virgin, because we just assume that we know who that is, but I thought, what is the historical evidence and what's in the Bible? And so I began researching that, and lo and behold, one of the images that was sent by the art museum was of Mary, and it was very weird, I thought. And so I began researching that image to see what those different objects in the painting were, and I ended up writing a poem, and then a few weeks later, another Mary image. And then I wrote another poem, and I thought, this could be interesting. So I started looking for Mary art online and writing these Mary poems. Well, after a few years of that, you remember how long ago the pandemic was, I got a little tired of the Virgin, and so I started branching out to other Marys. And so now I have this growing collection of poems that are about people named Mary, and it's called the Museum of Mary. So I'm going to read 4 of those, 2 about the Virgin and 2 non-virgins. Hail Mary, as in hello, which is as good as any beginning. A pouty look, a flirty look, how should one look? To be the queen of anything isn't easy. What is easy? You have got this, is frequently said, frequently recently. To be favored, to have grace bestowed upon, when everyone in the book of hours is busy contorting themselves to make sense of what it feels like to be in the light. You are right. We're moving from sea to shining sea, across the stolen, broken land, stricken with a grief that knows no bounds, and yet singing and saying, let's wake one more day in order to confirm that there was a moment yesterday when we were one. That's right. All these theatrics for which one pays with. Mary J. Blige, black and white, photographed by Thomas Whiteside for Elle magazine feature, Hail Mary, November 2011. The announcement. A bird came to see me once, a talking magpie that said, this will happen. And I didn't so much agree as think, why me? It was arbitrary as far as I could see, ordinary, being at hand and being asked to do whatever needs doing, steadfast as a tattoo that can't be washed off. A castle that isn't mine reminds me that this was not my idea, especially considering how inevitable death is, the way it falls like a cascading drape from the waist to the floor, a soft door that works hard to keep the world out and the mind behind it quiet. I stayed with the clock ticking away, calling attention to itself and to half-finished bridges and lilies and floor-length dresses that mess with one-point perspective and confessionals where men tell men their stories. Someone had to be used to exalt the idea of women who submit, a girl who would agree to say it was an angel. The Castello Annunciation, Sandro Botticelli, circa 1489. Cosmic Madonna. I'm available in laminate, plywood, or plastic. All will last through a nuclear winter. That's not to say there won't be difficult days. There will be. They keep coming around like a regifted Christmas. Out the window, the street is clear. No people, no cars. Then here comes a clock dragging a minute through the mud, ruining the illusion of standstill and closure. The last of my 7 sorrows is the boy who disappeared like a pin that rolled under a floorboard, unreachable, never to be seen again. I know that's nothing compared to a war where the dead lie looking up, their eyes aimed forever at heaven. I was once a bronze statue. Someone said they saw me weeping. Tell me, am I the only one who doubts that a bronze icon can cry, or wonders why the men in a painting of the Magi are wearing tunics and tights? Was that the fashion year zero in the West Bank? Surely not. One life lacks the depth and extravagance of a country in crisis, yet here we are, crying for their lives and ours, his life and mine, that time and this, and all the times when death happened through spiteful and vain acts of self-interest. Cosmic Madonna, Salvador Dali, 1958. And this is the last one. Mary Jane. Each thought a puff of air until finally there it was. The atmosphere is dense as a fogged-in city. Still, I saw the going upstairs on the face of the brick building opposite, the sun above the skyline, a bird making a beeline across a balcony. What I didn't see standing next to me was my future. After all that was left was an ember at the end of a roach clip. The blonde-haired boy from some Scandinavia of the mind began to stroke my arm as if I were a cat. I moved my arm, but he didn't stop. Some people think they can act on every odd idea that comes into their minds. I got up, closed the blinds, then sat back down again. He went back to petting me like a cat. I looked at my shoes. I heard the future say, someday you're going to have to learn to speak. Mary Jane's Last Dance, official music video, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, 1993. Thank you so much.
I'm about to ask about the mic, so we're gonna have a little quick Q&A. I have 1.5 questions prepared, and then we'll turn it back to the audience to ask another 2 questions, and then we'll kind of sum it up. But what are your thoughts here?
Sorry?
How do you want to do this?
I'm not sure. How would you guys like to do this? Pass the microphone back forward.
Yeah, we'll see if she breaks another one. So, I love these parallels around film that are happening as you two are reading your poems together. So I'm going to kick us off with part A is favorite film that you've seen recently. And then part B is how do you work with these other forms? So, if it's film, photography, translation, how do you see that interacting with your work? Because I can see it as a, chicken or the egg, right? Like you have the inspo, you get the random email from the St. Louis Arts Museum, and it sets you on this path, but also, right, like you could be borrowing texture, structure, image, all those things. I'm just curious about a question for both of you about how you engage with those. So favorite film, and how do you see multimedia in your work?
So this film didn't come out this year. I think it came out maybe last year, but I really loved the film Janet Planet by Annie Baker. She's mostly known as a playwright, but this was her first film, and it felt very poetic in the way that it lingered on objects and images and just stuff in a way that felt meditative, but also really artful. And then it also had moments that were dizzying and moved really quickly in ways that also felt poetic in certain ways. I think it's hard because poetic is a term that's thrown around a lot, and sometimes it can lose meaning. And so I feel like I may even be committing that crime now, but I I do think that there are certain times in which something that's on screen or on a canvas or on a stage can do something akin to language on a page. So I think for me, one of the things that comes together with writing about film and writing about poetry, or not writing about poetry, because I do that as well. I actually loved writing about your book because it was so easy to write about for me in a lot of ways. But I think the description of the world around us is something that it gives me great pleasure to try to capture is not even the right verb, because I don't think we really can capture it, but there's something really just incredible about the power of description. So I think that for me, that's what draws me to both certain aspects of poetry that describe the world and also certain aspects of film writing that describe what I experience through a film.
I can't talk about a favorite film, but
Okay.
a film
Yeah.
that I saw I liked is the Dylan biopic, and for some reason I'm blanking on the name. What was it called?
Is it the unknown one?
A Complete Unknown. Yeah, it's terrific. So what film or paintings or anything, it could even be a tree, do for me is it sparks some kind of, the optic nerve goes straight to the brain. And when I discovered that, it made sense to me that we get excited about what we see. And so I think that it excites something that has to do with what's in your brain already, and it kind of creates a highway or an off-ramp to go someplace, meaning to think about things. So I think that's, for me, the relationship is seeing, and seeing something, I get ideas, and when I get ideas, I write them down, because, you train yourself to do that, and then that may or may not become a poem, but sometimes it does, yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to, hopefully without any damages, take this baddie out and come run into the audience. Feel free to raise your hand. We've got time for 2 more questions. So if anybody's got something, I'm coming for you. Don't be shy. This is not the time to be shy. You got somebody? Yes. Everybody's watching me. Okay, I got it. Okay.
I enjoyed your reading. I think we all did. So I have a question, I guess it centers on film and poetry. So when it comes to remakes in film, right, or like a pastiche of poetry, what is your opinion on doing justice to the original? Like, how do you hold space for the original while still creating something based off of that piece of art?
I mean, I can't speak for filmmaking because I've never made a film, I've never remade a film, but I actually realized when I read one of the poems, the poem about Echo Park, I had a line from Sharon Olds that I had taught many, many years, and it's a poem called Rites of Passage, and it's about her son, he's a little boy. And I stole it, but I said Sharon said, and I figured it's a famous poem, and if my poem is ever published, I would of course credit her. It's not exactly a pastiche though, because I feel like it's more like an homage, and I'm thinking about how her poem and my poem might be connected. I'm not really sure. I feel like with ekphrastic poetry that's inspired or catalyzed by another piece of art, I don't feel like my goal is to do the same thing that piece of art did, because that feels like an impossible goal, and it feels like something I just would fail at. So I see it more as a conversation. Maybe that's how I see all art in a lot of ways. And there are wonderful, dazzling conversations that change who you are, and there are conversations that fizzle and aren't really as inspired. But Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever really thought about my poetry as like trying to do something that another piece of art has already done, so much as do something else with it, and take something with it. Like I like the way you described it as an off ramp, like you can see something and it can take you somewhere else in your mind. And I also think sometimes I find visual art and film and music sometimes can also help me understand emotions that I had a long time ago that I lacked a kind of structure for, or lacked a kind of art for. So I don't know, for me it can also kind of work retroactively.
I think the best way to describe how I use art forms is as a stage set. So, as Eileen said, there's no attempt to redraw that painting or that, to rephotograph that photograph, but to use it and to stand there on that stage and speak from my own experience. And for that reason, I think it's sometimes dangerous to have an epigraph that says the title of the painting, because it invites someone, if they know the painting, they feel like they're continually comparing what you've written to the painting itself. And if they don't, they feel they're left out. It's like, oh, I can't get this poem because I don't know that painting. So in general, I have, when a work is somehow responding to a work of art, I put that in a note in the back. But with these Mary poems, I wanted that to be on the page, so I'm putting it at the bottom of the page so that it's not there as a veil through which the reader has to pass in order to read the poem, but after the fact too. And I think even if you don't know that Botticelli painting, the fact that it was done in 14 whatever, and that it's called the Annunciation, you'll have an idea. On the other hand, when it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, even if you don't know that, you know that there's something playful going on. And I highly recommend, that's my favorite. If you'd asked me, my favorite music video, I could have told you. It's Last Dance with Mary Jane. It's amazing. Everybody go home and look at that.
I was gonna say also, Mary Jo, when you read the Mary poems, one of the things I loved is that you said you were reading poems, but two virgins and two not. So when you first read the Hail Mary poem about Mary J. Blige, I was thinking about it in terms of the Virgin Mary. And so that actually made it all the more delightful to get towards the end and realize, oh wait, this is a different. So I think that's another thing that, like, if poems are too prescriptive, then that can preclude that sense of delight that comes from surprise.
Awesome. One more. Anybody? It'll be creepy. Just make weird eye contact. All right. Well, if you don't have another question, obviously, both of them will be here to sign books and things like that after. You can buy the books at Left Bank over here. And then I also just want to real quick talk about the rest of our season, because it's pretty killer, y'all. As I try to use my Touch ID, it's not working. Okay. So we've got the next event that St. Louis Poetry Center is putting on. We have Poetry the Point, October 28th with Glendale Wallace and Jamie Wendt, and we have new curators this year, McCallum Lay and Andy Chen, and they're already doing a lot of super cool stuff. And then for Observable, we have in November 17th, we have Gabby Cavacaresi and Claude Camise-Jarbo. So pumped about this one. Claude Jarbo was an intern at River Styx forever ago, so we have that weird connection that I love. And then in February 16th, we've got Aaron Coleman and Kichi Coopers. And then in April, we've got Teresa Zeglowitz. So that's our run for the rest of this season. And then if you can, tip the bartender, tip him well. Yes.
If you want to become a member, don't hesitate to join. I started at $5 a month via PayPal. And I'm just keep trying to work up from that all the time. Again, we're thanking our funders and partners, Cransburg, Regional Arts Commission, Missouri Arts Council. Thank you always, obviously, Erin. Dean Levin was here for 4.5 seconds, and we're thankful for her legacy, that we inherited this beautiful reading series from her. And we love y'all, and we're so happy that everybody came. So have a good night. Woo!